There are journeys that can only be taken in silence, with no one but yourself. Sometimes walking alone isn't a sign of isolation, but of growth. Because the one who learns to be with themselves, without running away, without drowning in noise, becomes unstoppable. Not everyone will understand your path, but they're not meant to walk it with you. Remember, he who walks alone goes further. There's a kind of power that doesn't need to shout, doesn't need to be shown off, and doesn't need applause. It's the kind that is born when you learn to be alone and stop seeing it as a weakness and start seeing it as an opportunity. In this video, we're going to explore 10 powerful lessons from Stoicism. Lessons that have guided those who understood that real strength doesn't come from the outside, but from inner calm. Lessons that invite you to stop looking outside for what you can only build within. Because once you learn to walk without depending on others, you begin to make different decisions. Firmer, more honest, more yours. If you've ever felt that loneliness was heavy, just wait until you see what it can teach you. Tell me something. When was the last time you truly chose yourself? Not for what others expect of you, but for what you really need. Maybe you've been putting yourself last for too long, afraid of being alone or of disappointing others. If this speaks to you, subscribe and join this Stoic community. And tell me in the comments, what part of yourself have you been ignoring? Or just write, "Today I choose to walk by my side." Now I want you to listen to a story that holds the essence of everything we're going to talk about today. They say, genius is born from talent, but the truth is, genius is born from sacrifice. And if anyone understood that firsthand, it was Michelangelo. When he accepted the task of painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, he didn't do it with enthusiasm or confidence. He hesitated. He hesitated because he wasn't a painter. He was a sculptor. He hesitated because he knew what lay ahead wasn't just another job, but a mountain that would push him to his very limits. For over 4 years, he worked almost entirely alone, cut off from the outside world, breathing in plaster dust, sleeping on the floor with his body worn out and his mind on the edge of collapse. He went entire days without seeing anyone, his back bent under the weight of the ceiling and his hands torn from constant effort. There were moments when the silence was so deep that the only thing he could hear was his own breath and his doubts. No one applauded, no one encouraged him, no one understood him. Many even thought he was wasting his time. But every morning, no matter the pain or the exhaustion, Michelangelo climbed back up the scaffolding. Because deep down, he knew something very few people are willing to accept. Greatness isn't negotiated, it's earned. And the path to it is rarely filled with company. During those years, there was no audience, no praise, no validation, just him and his work, just him and his purpose, just him and that inner voice reminding him that every sacrifice, every act of discipline, and every sleepless night was part of the price he had to pay for something greater. And when the scaffolding was finally removed and the light touched the finished ceiling for the first time, the world fell silent. They weren't just looking at a monumental fresco. They were witnessing what happens when someone chooses to move forward, even when no one's watching, when they keep going, even when it hurts, when they stay true to a vision, even if no one else understands it. The Sistine Chapel isn't just a work of art. It's living proof that the deepest achievements aren't born from fleeting motivation or the approval of others, but from the courage to stay when quitting would be easier. And in that, Michelangelo was the perfect embodiment of what the Stoics said over and over again. True progress doesn't depend on the crowd that follows you, but on the inner strength that holds you up when you walk alone. Now get ready, because what comes next might change the way you see solitude. Lesson 1. Learn to be at peace with yourself. Marcus Aurelius had a habit that very few today dare to practice. He sought moments of silence even in the middle of the empire's chaos. He didn't need to escape to the mountains to find himself. He did it right there, in the heart of the palace, surrounded by advisors, noise, and responsibilities. In his meditations, he left behind a phrase that still serves as a powerful guide. Man takes refuge in the countryside, by the sea, or in the mountains. But the greatest refuge is within his own soul. And he was right. If you don't know how to be well with yourself, no company will ever fill your emptiness. Most of us, my friend, run from that encounter. We fear silence because in silence there are no distractions, no masks, no excuses. It's just us, and whatever we've been avoiding for far too long. That's why we fill every moment with noise, social media, plans, conversations, screens. But if you're always running from yourself, how will you ever truly get to know who you are? I don't know if you've noticed, but being alone is like walking into a house that's been closed up for years. At first there's dust, it's dark, and the echo unsettles you. You want to run away. But if you stay, if you open the windows and let the light in, you start to recognize every corner. And that place that once scared you starts to feel like home. The same thing happens with you. Once you learn to be at peace in your own company, you stop needing crutches to hold yourself up. The Stoics saw solitude not as punishment, but as training. Epictetus said true freedom comes when your peace of mind doesn't depend on others. And to get there, you have to learn to live with yourself without constantly chasing distractions. Only then can you develop the self-control that allows you to act with clarity, without being dragged around by noise. Because respect isn't earned by shouting or forcing authority. It's communicated from the calm of someone who knows themselves and trusts their own judgment. Think about yourself for a moment. How often do you feel like you always need to have something planned? That Sunday when, if no one's around, you keep checking your phone or looking for any excuse to go out. Not because you feel like it, but because the silence makes you uneasy. I get it, it happens to most of us. But try something different. Go for a walk without headphones, sit and have a coffee on your own. Let silence be your company for a while. At first it feels strange, almost uncomfortable. Then comes the surprise, and after that, a feeling of freedom you hadn't noticed before. You realize it wasn't solitude that scared you. It was facing that part of yourself you'd been avoiding for too long. And that's exactly when real growth begins. You can start today with something simple. Spend a few minutes each day without any stimulation. Do important things alone, from making decisions to enjoying a walk. And ask yourself honestly, what part of me am I avoiding? Seneca once wrote, "He who is enough for himself will never be poor." And he was right. Because once you learn to be okay with yourself, you no longer need anyone to complete you or fill your gaps. From that place of inner peace, relationships stop being a need and become a free choice. And it's exactly in that moment, when you understand you can walk alone, that everything shifts. Your steps become more grounded, your decisions more genuine, and your path clearer. Because someone who feels whole on the inside doesn't walk hoping to be accompanied. They go further, because they're no longer afraid to walk alone. Lesson 2. Free yourself from the weight of others' opinions. There's a kind of prison with no bars, yet millions live trapped inside it. The fear of what others might say. And the strange thing is, no one forces us in. We walk straight through its doors every time we hold back a dream for fear of judgment. Every time we change how we speak just to be liked. Every time we hide what we feel so we won't be rejected. We do it because we believe other people's approval gives us value, when in reality, it takes it away. Epictetus warned us with a phrase that, although uncomfortable, is deeply liberating. If you want to make progress, get used to being seen as foolish and stupid. Because as long as your worth depends on someone else's opinion, you're not living your life, you're acting in someone else's play. And the saddest part is that most of the time, you don't even know whose approval you're chasing. Living based on what others might think is like running with an open umbrella on a clear day. It's useless, it slows you down, and it doesn't protect you from anything. Because the heaviest rain doesn't come from the outside, it comes from within. It's that inner voice that keeps asking, what if they laugh? What if they think I failed? What if they don't approve? That voice is the one that truly limits your freedom. As Seneca wrote, he is a slave who lives to please others. And he was right. When you stop living to please, you begin to move forward with steady steps. You're no longer weighed down by other people's judgment. and every decision starts to feel lighter. The noise stops being an obstacle and turns into a distant echo that can no longer touch you. And in that moment, when you choose yourself over others' opinions, you realize that walking alone doesn't mean you're lost. It's actually the most direct path to getting further. Think of someone who dreams of changing their life, leaving a job, moving to a new place, starting a project. They know what they want, they feel it deeply, but they don't take the leap, not because they're not capable, but because they're afraid of disappointing their family or being judged by their friends. They spend years living up to others' expectations, and one day they wake up and don't recognize themselves. What stopped them wasn't a lack of courage, it was the fear of not being approved. And that fear, my friend, has destroyed more lives than failure ever could. If you want to break free from that weight, start today. Before making a decision, ask yourself, would I still do this if no one had an opinion about it? If the answer is yes, you're on the right path. Cut through the noise. You don't need a whole choir to validate you, just a few voices that truly care. And most importantly, practice saying no to what doesn't feel right, even if it bothers others. Now tell me, with complete honesty, what decision have you been putting off just because you're afraid of what others might think? Share it in the comments, I'd love to hear your story. Or if you prefer to say it in just one sentence, write, "Today, I walk light." Because once you learn to move forward without the weight of other people's judgment, every step brings you closer to the life you truly want. Lesson 3. Stay true to your habits, even in silence. Have you noticed how sometimes we act like children who only do their homework when someone's watching? The moment no one's around, we slow down, we put things off, or we leave them for later. And the Stoics already saw this as a sign of weakness. If your commitment depends on other people's eyes, then it's not virtue, it's performance. Think of someone who only trains when the coach is watching. While they're being observed, they give it their all, perfect reps, focused expression, best attitude. But the moment the coach looks away, they ease up, stop pushing, and fall back into comfort. Maybe that'll get them a few small wins, sure, but they'll never go far. Because sooner or later the noise fades. There are no more messages cheering you on, no one asking how it's going, no one congratulating you for sticking to the path. It's just you, your goal, and the temptation to give up because it feels like no one cares. But right there, in that exact moment of silence, is where your true nature shows. Because anyone can stay consistent with applause. Only those who walk alone keep moving when there are no witnesses. Marcus Aurelius never wrote his meditations with the idea of publishing them. They were personal thoughts, private reflections he probably never imagined would one day change the world. And yet, nearly 2,000 years later, they continue to guide millions. That's the power of what you do without an audience. Even in the shadows, it can light the way for others. Epictetus used to say that self-mastery is the highest form of freedom. And that kind of freedom isn't born on a stage or built in front of a crowd. It comes from the small decisions you make each day when no one's watching. From that moment you got out of bed even when your body begged for rest. From that night when you kept your word, even though no one would know. From every quiet choice that brings you closer to who you want to become. Maybe you also find it hard to stay strong when no one's looking, and that's exactly where the real training begins. You don't need to change your whole life. Just start with what matters most. Build small routines that don't rely on motivation, only on commitment. And when that moment comes when you feel like giving up because no one will notice, try this little mental trick. Imagine Marcus Aurelius watching you from his desk, silently judging whether you're being true to your purpose or just performing when there's an audience. Believe me, that image might push you more than any motivational speech ever could. Celebrate the wins no one sees, the ones that seem insignificant, but in truth shape your character. And above all, do everything with excellence, even if there's no thank you waiting at the end. Because if your effort stays the same with or without an audience, you've crossed the threshold of ordinary habits and stepped into the realm of true discipline. Remember what the philosopher Maria Zambrano wrote: "The wise man is the same in darkness as in full light." And she was right. Because discipline, my friend, is like the beat of a distant drum. At first, no one hears it, there's no applause or recognition. But you keep marching to that rhythm over and over, never skipping a beat. And without realizing it, that steady pulse becomes the foundation of your strength. If your habits stay strong even when no one's watching, the world can shake around you, and you'll still keep walking, steady and focused, without stopping every time the road grows quiet. Because the one who walks alone, without waiting for applause, is the one who ends up leaving footprints that last forever. Lesson 4. Choose your path. Even if no one approves, Epictetus used to repeat it again and again to his students. No one can decide for you what is good or bad for your life, and he was right. Because the moment you give up your decisions, you give up control over your destiny. And yet, my friend, that's exactly what many of us do without even realizing it. We follow careers we didn't choose, stay in places we don't want to be, and silence dreams that have been knocking from the inside for years, just out of fear of disappointing someone. Let me tell you the story of Mary Anning. She was born in the 19th century in a small coastal village in the south of England. Her family was poor. They barely had enough to live on, and the future ahead of her was as narrow as the streets she grew up in. But Mary had a dream that, in her time, bordered on madness. She wanted to search for fossils, not for money or fame, but because she had an endless curiosity about the past buried beneath the earth. The problem? Science wasn't a place for women. People mocked her, slammed doors in her face, laughed at her hobby, and even told her she should leave that to the men. But Mary didn't listen. Every morning she went out alone to the cliffs with her tools, while the rest of the town thought she was wasting her time. For months she came back empty-handed, but she didn't quit. And one day, buried under tons of rock, she found something that would change history: fossilized remains of sea creatures never seen before. She didn't need approval to keep going. She didn't wait for permission to continue. She walked alone for years, enduring ridicule, silence, and indifference. And because of that, she went further than anyone expected. The very world that rejected her ended up honoring her work, and today, history remembers her as the mother of modern paleontology. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Live according to your nature, not someone else's." There's no better way to describe the freedom that comes from choosing your own path, even if no one understands it. It means daring to disappoint expectations, to challenge inherited scripts, and to endure the looks from people who don't understand your direction. Because if every step you take is designed to please others, you'll end up walking in circles. And here's a hard truth: if you want to go far, you're going to have to walk alone more than once. Your path will be questioned, your vision will seem strange, and there will be decisions only you can justify. If you want to go further, stop asking for permission to do so. Before making any important decision, ask yourself honestly, does this reflect who I am, or just what others expect from me? Accept that some people won't understand your path, and that's okay. Not everyone is meant to walk beside you. And remember this: a mistake made by your own choice teaches you more than a success handed to you by someone else, because at least it was your experience, your lesson, your growth. Walking alone isn't always comfortable, but that's where true respect is born. Not the kind you demand by shouting, but the kind that radiates from the quiet confidence of someone who trusts their steps. And as you leave your footprints on that path, you'll realize you don't need them to be applauded. It's enough to know they're yours. Now tell me, are you willing to choose your destiny even if no one understands it? Share it in the comments with this phrase: I walk by my decisions, not their expectations. Because in the end, the one who dares to choose their own path doesn't just go further, they become the true owner of their life. Lesson 5. Walk at your own pace without looking sideways. Imagine you're rowing upstream. The current pushes hard, and you see many others floating effortlessly downstream. They move faster, yes, but they're not choosing where they're going. You, on the other hand, grip the oar with determination, because you know that direction is up to you, not the flow. And that's exactly what the Stoics believed, that life isn't measured by speed, but by intention. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The perfection of character is to live each day as if it were your last, without hurry and without pretending." Walking at your own pace means just that, acting with calm, without being dragged by the rush of those running without knowing where to. And that means that as long as your speed depends on someone else's rhythm, you're still tied to their expectations. Walking at your pace means knowing when to speed up and when to slow down, without guilt. It means having the serenity to wait when the time isn't right, and the determination to move when you know it is. There's no rush when the path is yours, because every step, even the small ones, is real. My friend, think of how many times you've compared yourself to someone else, to the one whose business is growing faster, to the one who got married earlier, to the one who seems to have everything figured out while you feel like you're falling behind. But the truth is, life isn't a synchronized race. Each of us has our own timeline, our own mountains to climb, and our own moments to bloom. When you understand this, you stop looking sideways and start enjoying the journey. And you realize that respect isn't earned by running faster than anyone. It's earned by walking with purpose, without losing your calm or betraying your path. If you feel that constant pressure to keep up with everyone, remember that the goal isn't to arrive fast, it's to arrive as yourself. Set long-term goals and measure your progress by comparing it to your own yesterday, not someone else's success. Take mindful pauses, not to doubt yourself, but to realign your direction. And celebrate every step forward, even the tiniest ones, because they are the ones that carry you through the long road. Seneca said it clearly, "No wind is favorable for the one who doesn't know where they're going." If your pace matches your purpose, it doesn't matter whether you get there first or last. What matters is that you don't lose yourself in races that were never yours. Walking alone often means walking more slowly, yes, but also going further, because every step is real, every decision is yours, and every achievement carries your name. Lesson 6. Find your strength. When no one holds you up. They say some people are born with the wind at their back. Epictetus wasn't one of them. He was born in a house where he didn't even have his own name, just a number. He owned nothing, not even the right to decide what to do with his days. Orders ruled his life, and punishment was the language he lived in. And yet, in the middle of all that, something unexpected happened. He didn't break. Every time the world knocked him down, he found a reason within himself to get back up. Every time someone tried to make him a slave, he chose to be free in his mind. "No one is free unless he is master of himself," he wrote. It wasn't just a pretty phrase. It was a declaration of war against everything that tried to destroy him. And if he, with no support, no privileges, and no help, managed to stay standing, why wouldn't you be able to do the same? Maybe you're still waiting for someone to come and save you. But the truth is, no one can rescue you better than you can. Not because you're invincible, but because there is far more strength in you than you think. The problem is, you forget it every time you tie your strength to someone else's presence. Think about this. There are people who, after a breakup, a loss, or a betrayal, collapse because they feel they have no one to turn to. And then there are others who, despite feeling the same pain, keep going. Not because it hurts less, but because they understand that to stop would be to betray themselves. They start from scratch, rebuild their goals, heal step by step. And with every step, they discover that real strength isn't in who walks with you. It's in not giving up. Seneca once wrote, "The soul becomes stronger through adversity." And he was right. That discomfort we fear so much, the silence, the absence, the emptiness, is actually an invisible gym. Every time you choose to rise without help, your foundation gets stronger. Every time you keep moving without a push, your will becomes steel. That kind of strength doesn't make noise, but once it's there, nothing can break it. Maybe today you feel like you're alone, but that's your opportunity. Redefine solitude, not as abandonment, but as the perfect setting to find out what you're really made of. Start small. Pour your energy into actions that depend only on you, without waiting for praise or permission. And when you start doubting your strength, remember every time you got through something alone. Those silent victories are proof that you can handle this too. When there's no one left to hold you up, you become your own pillar. And once you realize you can stand on your own, you understand that abandonment, loss, or failure have no real power over you. In fact, every obstacle becomes a chance to prove to yourself that you don't need to shout to be strong or rely on others to earn respect. All you need is that quiet decision to keep going, even when you're walking the path alone. Because the one who walks alone goes further and walks stronger. Lesson 7. Discover who you are when everything goes quiet. Have you ever felt like you know yourself, but deep down you suspect you've barely scratched the surface? Have you ever had the sense that there are parts of you avoid looking at, like if you don't think about them, they might stop existing? Or worse, have you realized you've spent years repeating the same behaviors without knowing why? If so, you're not alone. We all go through this, and still, very few of us dare to stay alone with our thoughts long enough to uncover what's beneath the surface. And if you've ever tried to truly get to know yourself, you'll know it's not as easy as it sounds. As Epictetus warned, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. That line hits straight at our comfort zone, because as long as we're convinced we already know ourselves, we'll avoid the most uncomfortable part of all, seeing ourselves without filters. And only those who dare to do that can begin to build from a place of truth. Socrates' story makes it clearer than any theory ever could. It said he would spend long hours in silence, not to shut out the world, but to observe it from the inside. His famous phrase, "Know thyself," wasn't just a nice quote to carve into a temple wall. It was a way of life. He believed that anyone who doesn't understand themselves ends up a slave to their impulses, desires, and fears. And there's nothing more dangerous than walking through life without knowing which voice is guiding your steps. Marcus Aurelius had a habit that many today would find uncomfortable. Every night he would review his thoughts, decisions, and reactions from the day. He didn't do it to punish himself, but to understand, to see why he got angry, why he acted with ego, or what he did well. That constant practice of introspection was, for him, as important as preparing for any battle. Because if you don't know yourself, you can't govern yourself. And if you can't govern yourself, you'll struggle to inspire true respect through your actions. So now I want you to think about yourself. Maybe your days are full of noise, work, messages, social media, conversations, and in the middle of all that, there's no space left to actually hear yourself. But self-knowledge doesn't happen in crowds. It happens in silence, in those moments when you choose to stay with yourself, even if you don't like what you see. Because it's in that discomfort where real transformation begins. There are many ways to start that path. For example, each night write down 3 things you discovered about yourself that day, even if they're not pretty. Today I realized I struggle to say sorry. Today I noticed I avoid hard conversations. Today I saw how much I seek approval. You can also try doing new things alone, like traveling by yourself or signing up for a class that pushes you out of your comfort zone. These experiences reveal sides of you you hadn't met yet. And even though it might sound strange, speaking to yourself out loud can help you hear what you really think, without the filter of routine. When you choose to get to know yourself, you'll see that silence isn't the enemy. It's a mirror. And the clearer that reflection becomes, the more confidently you'll walk, without needing to shout or impose. Because authentic respect doesn't come from noise, but from the calm and clarity of someone who knows who they are. Now here's a question for you to reflect on, and I'd love for you to answer it in the comments. What part of yourself are you ready to discover today? And if you'd rather keep it simple, write, "Today I begin to truly know myself." Lesson 8. Trust yourself more than any applause. Some fires are lit by applause and others burn silently, even when no one sees them. Confidence belongs to that second kind. It doesn't need a stage or praise or spectators. It lives inside you like an inner torch, one that doesn't shine brighter just because others are watching, but because you choose to keep it burning, even when the wind blows against you. Marcus Aurelius said it simply, "Look within. There lies the fountain of good, and it will keep flowing as long as you keep digging." That source, that unshakable strength, is in you, even if sometimes you forget. Imagine you're chasing a dream that few people understand. Maybe your family criticizes it, your friends don't take it seriously, and even you sometimes doubt it in silence. And yet, you keep going. Not because you have guarantees, but because there's a quiet voice inside you saying, "Trust." That is true confidence, the kind that doesn't need a crowd, the kind that holds steady even when no one is pushing you forward. Maybe your choices don't make sense to others right now. Maybe the people around you question your abilities or fail to see what you see in yourself. But if you trust your judgment, if you keep showing up and stay on course even when it doesn't make sense to anyone else, one day, those same people who doubted you will ask how you did it. And you'll know the truth. You didn't do it to convince them. You did it because you believed in yourself when no one else did. Epictetus said, "He who seeks happiness outside himself is doomed to disappointment." And he couldn't have been more right. If your worth depends on recognition, you'll spend your life chasing validation. Every applause will become a need, every silence a threat. But when your confidence comes from your ability to choose, adapt, and persist, nothing external can break you. That's the difference between being a prisoner of other people's opinions and walking calmly, even when the path is empty. When doubt shows up, and it will, remember all those moments you pushed through without help. Let those memories fuel you. Speak to yourself out loud if you need to. Say, "I can handle this," and learn to move in silence. You don't have to announce every step. Sometimes the strongest kind of confidence is just moving forward without a word and letting your results do the talking. And the most powerful thing of all is this: once you learn to trust yourself, walking alone stops being scary. You stop looking sideways for approval and begin to move forward with steady steps, even if no one is walking beside you. That's the kind of confidence that takes you further. The kind that doesn't need witnesses to stay strong. The kind that doesn't flicker in solitude. The kind that keeps going when everything else stands still. Because the one who dares to believe in their path, even if they walk it in silence, ends up reaching places those who depend on applause will never touch. Lesson 9. Sacrifice is the price of your greatness. Remember the story we opened this video with? The one about Michelangelo. About the man who spent years shut away, exhausted, with a broken body, painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, without even knowing if the world would ever value his work. He understood something that many still refuse to accept. Nothing truly worthwhile comes without sacrifice. And above all, he understood that the path to greatness is often walked alone. No one pushed him, no one carried him. It was just him, face to face with his purpose, who chose to keep going. And now, I want you to think about yourself. Maybe you're also waiting for your path to get easier, for the perfect opportunity to drop from the sky, or for someone to show up and give you a push. But the truth is, nothing important comes without paying a price. Epictetus knew this well. No great thing is created suddenly, and he didn't say that from theory but from experience. He was born a slave, suffered abuse, even lost the use of a leg. And in spite of it all, he chose to keep learning, to keep reflecting, to keep growing. His pain didn't define him. It forged him. The price of his wisdom was suffering, and he paid it without hesitation. My friend, if you truly want to transform your life, you need to ask yourself, what are you willing to leave behind? Make a list, an honest one, no sugarcoating, of everything you're ready to sacrifice this year for your goals. If the list is short, maybe your desire isn't as real as you think. Don't ask, is it worth it? Ask, is it worth my life? If the answer is yes, then keep going, even if it hurts. And when you're full of doubt, remember, every sacrifice you make today is a future version of you thanking you for not giving up. Sacrifice is not punishment. It's an investment. Every time you choose discipline over laziness, you're investing in your growth. Every time you choose silence over validation, you're investing in your character. And every time you choose to walk alone, even when it's heavy, you're investing in your freedom. Remember what Marcus Aurelius said, "Everything that is worth having comes from effort." And he was right. Letting go of distractions, of people who hold you back, of pleasures that weaken you. It's not weakness, it's strategy. You don't do it because you enjoy the sacrifice. You do it because you know your purpose is worth far more than any momentary comfort. Because in the end, the one who is willing to keep walking alone when the road gets steep is the one who ends up going furthest. If you think about it, everything we've talked about up to now has been about the same thing. Learning to stand on your own, to keep moving forward, to stop needing a push. But there's one more thing, something that often makes the difference between staying stuck and moving beyond. And that is what I want you to understand in this final lesson. 10. Leave footprints that speak for you. My friend, your life is like a torch in the middle of a dark forest. It might not light the way for everyone, but it will be enough for someone, lost in the fog, to find a way forward. And even if you don't always realize it, the way you act carries incredible power. Marcus Aurelius knew this well. When he wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like the one who wronged you," he didn't write it to be remembered by history. Those were quiet words, written just for himself. And yet, centuries later, they still guide people who are trying to live with integrity. That's proof that what you leave through your actions reaches far beyond any speech. Walking alone isn't just about getting far. It's about what you build along the way. And the strange thing is, your greatest impact is often one you'll never see. It's in the people who watch you quietly and find in your example a reason to keep going. Epictetus said, "What matters is not what happens, but how we respond to it." And in those responses, in those small moments when no one's clapping or watching, is where your deepest mark is made. It's not your success that inspires. It's how you hold your ground when everything feels like it's falling apart. It's not your words that guide. It's how you choose to treat others when you could have just looked away. Live as if your life is the example someone else needs to see. Ask yourself each night, would the person I was today leave a mark I'd be proud of? And if the answer is no, then tomorrow is your chance to change that. Because it's not about perfection, it's about consistency. Every decision you make, every gesture you choose, every step you take in solitude builds a path that someone someday might walk too. My friend, the solitary path doesn't end with you. It ends with others. And once you understand that, walking alone stops being just a personal act. It becomes something much greater. Because the one who moves forward without needing applause doesn't just go further, they open a way for others to follow. And that, without a doubt, is the most powerful way to leave a mark, not by speaking louder, but by walking with such clarity, calm, and purpose, that your presence alone becomes a light for someone else. So here's your final challenge. Think about the mark you want to leave and write it in the comments. It can be a simple phrase like, "I want my life to be a quiet example." Because in the end, the one who walks alone not only goes further, they also light the way for everyone who comes after. I won't lie to you. There will be moments when the road feels too long, when the silence weighs heavier than you expected, and you'll feel like turning back. But that, right there, is the moment your strength is tested. Because walking alone isn't about proving anything to anyone. It's about building a future that only you can see right now, but that one day will speak for itself. Every step you take in solitude brings you closer to a place most people never reach, simply because they never dared to take that step. And if this video stirred something inside you, I want you to do one thing. Leave this phrase in the comments as a promise to yourself. I walk in silence, but I will go far. That tells me you're part of this community that doesn't give up. Subscribe and turn on the bell so we can walk this path of wisdom together. You've got more videos on screen waiting for you, because every step counts. Click now, and let's keep learning together.